my veins. Blue and one, I red, white and blue in my brain. I'm Bulldog born. Bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the Bulldogs lead.
Okay, welcome back to Inside the Kennel podcast. It's 2023. We're doing our third episode. It's beautiful weather. We've got the season in front of us. We've got a squad. People are just starting to get their scarves and their jumpers out of the closet and out of the dark places from under the bed, in my case. We've got the wonderful Dougie Hawkins again on board with us. Welcome, Dougie, to the program. And we've got Matty flying the flag. Dougie, how's 2023?
Good on you, Paul. How are you? How are you, Paul? How are you, Matty? And good to be back on, boys. And again, with our guest coming up. You arrive with a bang. Let me tell you, you arrive with a bang.
Yeah, well, we're talking about none other than Alister Ford. And now it may not necessarily be a household name for some of your Bulldog supporters out there, but he certainly did arrive with a bang. He's got one of the most unique stories of coming into the club, and we'll let him tell that story. It's a remarkable one. But you know, how was he received? You know, as this tall blonde bombshell, Dougie, coming in 1981 when you already had, you know, the likes of Calvin Templeton. What was it like to hear about this 17-year-old from Bairnsdale coming through the doors?
Yeah, Matty, it was 81, was it? 81?
81.
Yeah. So he's only probably 17, just turned 17. He was a pretty quiet kid from Bairnsdale. He was pretty quiet and didn't say a real lot. I reckon he probably lacked a little bit of confidence, if that, I think that. But then again, his kid's 17, he's coming into an AFL club. You're not going to walk around and go, you know, here I am and bang, bang and all that sort of stuff. So he arrived, and I remember very clear. I can remember it now. He played his first game, I reckon it was against Collingwood. Is that right, boys?
That's correct.
I'm pretty
sure
that's
181.
Right. And he probably would have kicked 3 or 4. I thought he was pretty good. I thought 3, did he? Yeah, I thought he was okay. You know, and I really thought, I said, this kid shows a bit. And then the footy world sort of sat up and went, and you mentioned it, Matty, the blonde bombshell, 6 foot, probably 4 in the old terms. Is that fair? He was pretty tall and had
right.
Very good leap, very nice kick, left footer, natural left footer. He may have went to St Kilda for a little while, did he? Did he go there?
He went 86. That's right, straight after. And I think he replaced Tony Lockett. Had a few suspensions in those sort of mid 80s, and so he had some opportunities there, and he showed those moments.
When did he go there, Matty? When did he go to St Kilda again?
86. It was straight after 86. Our 85 season, because he only played the one game in 85, despite being an emergency. Probably a dozen times in 85. And Purser, I think Andrew Purser got suspended one game, and he had an opportunity. He came in against the Saints mid-season and actually played an incredibly good game. So it was just, on the back of Andrew coming back that he wasn't able to sort of retain his position, because, Purser was obviously the reigning best and fairest from 84. Who knows what might have been had, Mickey Malthouse had have said, well, let's try him in a forward pocket and as a resting ruck, and he may have given us that extra dimension and edge that that we maybe needed at the end of the season. I don't know.
Yeah. So he probably had 5 years of us, Paul, Matty, and he, 40 may have played. I don't know what 40 games, 30, 40 odd, and how long did he have at St Kilda? Was he there long?
I think it was 2 years at the Saints. He played 21 with us and 18 at the Saints, so 39 in total.
Only 39 in total for the ability the boy had. Yeah. That's a funny one, and you're right. Purser in 85, we finished third. We got beaten in a prelim final by 10 points. So it was. It's always going to be hard for Alister to get a game and to play forward or to play in the ruck. Yeah.
Dougie, was there? We spoke to Ray Walker about the fact that positions were almost like being stuck in concrete back in those days where you didn't do a lot of movement. Was there all that also in the mid 80s? Was there a lack of imagination around where players could play?
Yeah, Paul. I think you got. What's the word? Not pigeon. You had a spot, and that's where they were going to play you, and that's where you played. It was like Brad Hardy played in the back pocket. Dougie Hawkins, who could play a bit of centre, but going to play on a wing. Jimmy Evans going to play half forward where he could come up and push and play a bit on ball. And then Neil Cordy was centre half forward, centre half back. Peter Foster got swung to centre half forward at times. So, it was a tricky one. It was a tricky one for 40. And just hearing Matty say, Paul, that his career after, finished after only a couple of years at St Kilda, I followed East Ballarat because Rob McPherson went up there. He played at East Ballarat, Alister Ford, and I got a feeling he won a comp medal, I think it was called the Henderson Medal back then. He won that at East Ballarat, and they won a grand final under Gary Odgers, who was playing at St Kilda and coaching East Ballarat. Does that sound? I'm on the money there. I'm on the money there, surely.
Yeah, well, he not only he won that Ballarat, the Henderson Medal, as you talk about, he also won the Geelong League Best and Fairest as well as a 32-year-old in 1995, 3 years before that. So he was, as a country footballer, to win the comp, in his early and mid 30s, in two different comps, the League Best and Fairest, that says a lot.
And they're formidable.
Yeah, sorry, Paul, go on, mate.
They're formidable. They're formidable leagues as well, Doug.
Yeah, so Paul, mate, he actually. Was it St Albans? He was at St Albans Footy Club in. Correct. I know we've got St Albans here in Footscray. It was the St Albans club he was playing for, was it?
Yeah, in the Geelong League. Correct. Yeah, that's right.
So and he won a medal there as well.
Yeah.
He might have been a late maturer. We should have got him back at 28.
Get him back.
But he's a lovely boy, lovely bloke, 40. I loved him. He was a fantastic fella. I got a feeling he might have been a carpenter at that stage when he first arrived. And, again, just had stack of potential. And we see a lot, guys show us so much. But for whatever reason, there's just not lack of opportunity and there's a lot of good personnel around. That could have been a situation with young 40. But terrific young man, very polite, respectable, a good kid.
Thanks so much, Dougie. Well, sorry, Paul, we've got him knocking at the door, so we'll let's bring him in. He's got an epic tale to tell. So let's
go on, your 40.
Let's do it.
Looking forward to his story. Thanks, Dougie. Wonderful. Okay, we've got the gentle giant himself, the man from the Latrobe Valley. Geez, they were tough up there, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a ruckman come forward, the great man from the Bulldogs, Alister Ford. Welcome, Alister, to Inside the Kennel podcast.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Matty. Good to be here.
Absolutely. Welcome, Alister. Well, we've got a really interesting journey that we'd love to share with our Bulldog fans today. And before we get there, I'd love to just ask you, Alister, how would you, for those supporters who haven't seen you play, how would you describe yourself as a player? And are there any sort of current Bulldog players that you might sort of be quite similar to in any way?
I probably played better footy when I finished league football because I was only, my last season, my seventh season, I was only 22. So, I left and then went and played in the Victorian Country footy leagues, a couple of leagues, and I probably played better footy then. But, probably I was probably one of the shortest ruckmen in the league myself. And at the time when Andrew Purser came along, we were probably about the same height. And the other opposition rucks were always taller than us guys, so you had to adapt so I was probably fairly adaptable. I used to play me forward or in the ruck or just fill a hole really somewhere where it needed to be done. That was probably the opportunities that I got. But anyway, look, it was what it was. So it was an enjoyable time.
Alister, how did you get involved in footy? Most people it's through your parents or your dad or an uncle. And what was your junior pathway and who were your influences, coaches and such?
Yeah, look, junior footy I played. We were in Far East Gippsland, a little farming community called Mossy Face, which was just outside of Bruthen, which is about 25k east of Bairnsdale. And they had a footy club and a cricket club. And they had a junior team, under 15 team that played on in a Sunday afternoon competition, the Tambo Valley Football League. And I started there when I was, I think, about 10 and went right through the under to finish the under 15s. I can't really remember much about the coach when I started. He was just a sort of young fella. He worked at the post office in Brisbane, I think. But then one Sunday he just didn't arrive at the game, and Dad jumped in and coached the team for the day, and then met with the footy club on the following Tuesday night and said, well, I'll coach the kids. I'm happy to do it. He said, but it's an honorary position. He said, I don't want anything for it. So he just took on the job, and we went through. And in my final year, in the under-15s, we won the flag undefeated. We won the grand final by about 20 goals. And then we left that league and went into the Omeo League, which is even further away from Melbourne.
It sounds like, Alister, what you're saying, you were playing under 15s as a 10-year-old. So that tells you a bit about you had to do it the hard way.
No.
There was no sort of...
all the kids in town did that.
Yeah.
And that was the only way we could field the side. You know, so had 15-year-olds down to 9 or 10-year-olds all the time. So
and based on how quickly you were recruited to the Bulldogs, I take it you were playing some pretty good football when you graduated from the under-15s and must have played some pretty impressive football from there on.
I started out as when I was 10 in the under-15s, I started out as a rover, and then graduated to the half-forward flank, and then around the wing, and then centre half-forward, then into the ruck in the last couple of years in those two junior years. I played mainly in the ruck.
Sounds like a bit of a Tim English kind of development there, and how that impacts on your game, because you have to earn your own ball as a sort of a smaller player, and then as you get taller, you can dominate. So look, we had some tough times back when I was a kid, like a real little kid playing. We used to get some beltings, but I was just happy we were going out on the ground having a game of footy each weekend. That was all we wanted to do, really. And your many Bulldog supporters will remember your cousin who wore the number 45 for the Dogs, Mickey Ford. And I imagine you in the paddocks down in Bairnsdale having a kick of the ball and honing your craft out there.
Yeah.
Would that be true, or have I got that wrong?
No. We used to have a kick of the footy, but look, generally Michael had come out to the farm during the summer holidays, and we'd just play test cricket. And I'd bat for an hour, and then Michael would bat for 4.5 days. That's pretty much what it was like. But we used to kick the footy around, but not so much the footy. We used to kick the soccer ball around a lot, especially when we get into Michael's place, and I'd just have to stand in the goal, and he'd be out there, and he'd just be slamming them at me, and I'd be trying to stop him. Everything he did turned his hand to. He was, in sport-wise, he's very, very good. Cricket, soccer, football. He used to clean me up at table tennis, all that sort of stuff. I was a better shot than him with a rifle, and I was better at catching fish. So that was about it.
Now, tell us, Alister, how did you come to the attention of the Bulldogs Footy Club? So how do you go from playing 5 years of under 15? Your dad coaches you. You're in this amazing football under 16 team that a rep team takes on. You go into the big leagues, Barnsdale. You're a tall, thin boy. So how do you go from there to being touted a possible Bulldogs player?
I went to footy training at Bairnsdale one night, and the guys, the couple of the committee men and the coach, and I think it might have been the president, said, "Look, there's a game at Newborough on Saturday." And it's just all of Footscray's area, and anyone who wants to go, I think I said if you're under 21 or 22 or something like that, you can go and have a game, and the recruits will be there to watch. And I thought, oh yeah, okay, no worries. So I didn't have a license or anything. I just turned 17, so I packed up and I walked over to the highway from where I was living, and put me in the middle of town and put my thumb out, and 15 minutes later this car pulled up. Where are you going? So I'm going to Newborough to play footy. They said, oh look, and it was a family from Lakes Entrance, and they said, look, we'll take you to Newborough, but we're keeping on going to Melbourne. I said, that's fine, just get me there. So they got me there. All right. So anyway, I go into the rooms at Newborough, and there's all these blokes in there that I'd seen playing in the seniors and that in the Latrobe Valley League and they were all, had, probably played 2, 3, 4 years of senior footy, and then they put the boards up and they had me centre half forward in one of the teams. I thought, oh, that's a bonus. I didn't even think I'd be on the ground to start. I was probably the youngest kid in the sheds. So anyway, we went out and played the first half, and I played okay. I think I kicked a couple of goals or whatever, and took a few marks and whatever. And then we went in at half time, and I'm sitting back over in my corner. I didn't really know anyone, so I just sat over there by myself. Anyway, all of a sudden, you could have heard a pin drop. The whole place just went totally quiet. And I look up, and the guy walked into the rooms, and it was Royce Hart. Now, Royce was probably, 6'3" or 4? And he was fairly big bloke, but I'd only ever seen him on TV. And everyone just stopped, and he just walked over to the fellas that were at the table with all the gear and had a quick word to them. And one of the blokes pointed over at me in the corner, and I'm thinking, no, you got the wrong bloke, mate, So anyway, Royce comes over and introduces himself, and he said, because they told him my name and that, and he said, oh, you got down here from Bayside. I said, oh, yeah, I had to hitchhike, but I got here. But he said, look, we're playing Hawthorn tomorrow in a practice match at Moe. And he said, I want you to come back down tomorrow and play in the under-19s. I said, well, I'll have to ask Mum and Dad if they'll, what they're doing on the farm and whether they can bring me down. And then he said, oh, no, you'll be right. I said, yeah, but I said, I don't really want to come. I said, because it's my girlfriend's birthday tomorrow. And the look on his face, he just shook his head. He said, no. He said, no. He said, you coming down to play footy tomorrow. He said, come off the ground now, stop playing. You don't play the second half and you're playing tomorrow. I said, no. I said, I'll come all this way under my own steam. I said, I'm playing the second half. No, he said, no. I said, yes, I am. So anyway, he said, no worries. He said, get out there and play then. So I went out and played. After the game, they had the indoor swimming pool at Newborough open, and we were walking down the road to have a swim before we went home. And he pulled up in the car. He was in the passenger seat, and the bloke pulled up, went down the window, and Royce leaned over and said, well done. He said, I'll see you tomorrow. I said, oh, look, I'll have to ask if Mum and Dad can bring me. I said, if I'm there, I'm there. If I'm not, I'm not. He said, yep, no worries. So anyway, I got home and rang Mum and Dad and said, this is what's happened. And they said, okay, look, we'll go down for a drive and take you down there.
So what an experience for you, your very first meeting with an AFL legend, a VFL legend in Royce Hart, and the coach of the Bulldogs, and you have pretty much given him the don't argue and won an arm wrestle essentially with him to say, I'm playing this on my terms, and yet he's still keen to have you.
Yeah, I didn't want to come off the ground and not play. I wanted to play footy, So anyway, I played in that. They put me centre half forward again, and I played in that under-19 match against Hawthorn. And I think I kicked 5 goals that day. As soon as the game finished, I grabbed the pie and a Coke from the canteen and jumped in the car and said to Mum and Dad, come on, let's go. So we went home. We didn't even stay and watch the reserves for the seniors. I didn't see Royce that day, but he was there and watched the game, but he didn't come and speak to me or anything like that. Just after the practice match, we're at home on the farm. There's Mum and Dad and myself and my younger brother, and all of a sudden, one of the farm dogs just went berserk, and there's a car coming up the driveway. So Dad goes out to see who it is, and we're all sitting inside. And anyway, he walks back in the door, and followed him in was the CEO, I think, or the general manager of Footscray. I think it was David Allen at that time. And behind him was Royce Hart, and behind him was Kelvin Templeman. And so they've just come from Melbourne out to the farm just to talk to Mum and Dad and myself about, playing footy at Footscray. And it was fairly, as I say, for a 17-year-old kid who'd only ever seen these people on TV, it was fairly daunting to have them sitting at the kitchen table in the farmhouse telling me they wanted me to go and play footy with them. So anyway, on the Monday it was, I think, I'm sitting in the classroom doing my theory work in the morning, and it's a typical old secondary school, you know, with the long corridor and the classrooms down one side and the lockers and all that sort of stuff. And I'm right down the end and there's the windows there. And this guy walks past the windows to the door and bangs on. I looked up and it was the guy who was at the 1978 grand final and presented me with the tracksuit, John Dodd. And I'd never seen him. I hadn't seen him for 3 years. And he put his head in the door and he said to the trade school teacher, he said, "Can I talk to Alister?" And the trade school teacher said, "Yep, not too long, but, you know, off you go." So I went with him. He said, "Come down the front of the building onto the highway there where the car park was." And he said, "Get in the car." And he had this flash new Falcon. So I get in the passenger seat and he said, "What are you doing on Saturday?" I said, "Well, we got a buy from the footy." He says, he said, "We want you to come down and play at Footscray." He said, "In the reserves." And anyway, he leaned over me and he opened the glove box in the car and he pulled out this wad of cash, like it was rolled up. It was enormous, and he threw it in my lap. And I said, "What's this?" And he said, "That's your match payment for this Saturday." And I was earning, I reckon, about 70 or 75 bucks a week as an apprentice carpenter. I said, "How much is it?" And he said, "There's $1,000. And this is the days, there's no flexi tellers and all that sort of stuff. And he leaned over and opened the door, started the car, and he pushed me out of the car. Anyway, I'm standing on the footpath and I've got this $1,000 in my hand and I couldn't go to the bank. I had no bank book, so I just shoved it in my pocket and done the rest of the day at trade school. I went home to where I boarded with my grandmother and put it under my pillow, and I dead said, "I don't reckon I slept that night. I just thought that someone was going to come and steal the money." No one knew about it.
You're talking about 4 months of apprenticeship wages just in your hand there. It almost sounds like a mafia movie. An offer you can't refuse.
Yeah. Anyway, Mum and Dad took me down to Melbourne on the weekend and I played in the reserves. We played St Kilda in round 1. I played centre-half forward that day. Phil Bradmore played full forward. He kicked 9 goals and I got 4 goals at centre-half forward. We went home and on the Tuesday, I didn't hear anything from anyone. On the Tuesday, the engineer came over to our workshop. He said, "Oh, there's a phone call for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Andrews. I didn't mean for anyone to ring me during working hours." He said, No. He said, "It's okay." He said, "It's probably a call you want to take." Because he was just a sports nut. He would have loved, getting a phone call like this. So anyway, I go over to his office. He says, "Sit down in your chair." So I sat in the chair and he didn't leave the office. He stayed there. I said, "Hello." And the voice said, "Oh, g'day, Alister. How you going?" I said, Yeah, good." He said, "It's Royce Hart." I said, "Oh, g'day, Royce. How are you?" He said, "Good." He said, "How'd you go? And so how'd you think you went on Saturday? Did you enjoy the game?" I said, "Oh, yeah, look, it was good. It was pretty quick and pretty tough and good experience, but I thought I managed to get through it okay." He said, yeah, you did." He said, "You did a good job." He said, "You're coming down to play on the weekend again?" I said, "Oh, no." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Oh, the coach at Bairnsdale told me I'll be in the seniors at centre-half back. We're playing Warragul at Warragul first match." He said, "If you come down to Footscray and play on the weekend," he said, "you'll be in the seniors for Footscray." I didn't even ask him who we were playing. He didn't tell me who we were playing or where we were playing. So anyway, I got off the phone and by this time there's a crowd of all the blokes that I worked with there. And I said, "I'm playing in the seniors on Saturday for Footscray." And they said, "Who are you playing?" I said, "I don't know. I have no idea." So it was a mad rush into our smoko room because that's where the footy draw was up on the wall. Anyway, someone ran in and he said, "Oh, you're playing Collingwood at Collingwood."
It's such an unusual introduction to the AFL, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to be plucked out of obscurity to some degree and put at the highest level of football in the land is a phenomenal. Your head must have been spinning. Surely.
Oh, it was. Yeah. It was a really. I look back at it now and think about it, and it was just a head spin. Some of it,
Well, you must pinch yourself now looking back. Can you tell us, Alister, a little bit about your first game and also just some of the special games, the really big games that you played that you look back on fondly?
Yeah. Oh, look, the first game was, again, I remember we got to the motel on the Friday night and there was a reporter and a photographer there from The Age, and they wanted the photo, and I said, look, I halfway out the car, I've got bare feet, a pair of jeans on and a t-shirt, and they've taken a photo, that'll do. So that was the one that was in the paper. We parked right near the front of the Collingwood Rooms social club, and I saw a couple of the Collingwood guys, or presumably Collingwood guys, walking in because I was signing autographs, and there was a line of kids, and I just walked past and no one stopped me. No one knew who I was. Second week there. So anyway, we walked into the ground and up into the stand, and I looked at it and I thought, the first thing that hit me was that it looked exactly as it did in the movie The Club that was made the year before. Fellow was there who was the chairman of selectors, Alan Wallace, his name was, and there was Royce and old Eddie Walsh, the property steward.
Mm-hmm.
And Royce introduced me to Eddie, and he said, this is Alister, he's playing his first game. So Eddie gave me my jumper and my shorts and my socks. I still had the boots that I'd been wearing for about 3 years, I reckon. I think I wore the same boots in my first game that I wore in the 1978 grand final in the under-15s. And I'd worn them for a couple more seasons after that. And anyway, Royce grabs the jumper and he held it up and he said, you're number 6. I said, oh, yeah, okay. And he said, this is a really famous number at Footscray. I said, oh, okay. And bearing in mind, I was a St Kilda supporter when I was a kid. He said, do you know why number 6 is such a famous number at Footscray? Who made it such a famous number? And I had absolutely no idea. And I'm thinking, last year, I thought, Gary Cowton's not the right answer. Anyway, I said, no, I'm sorry, Royce, I couldn't tell you, I don't know. He said, Charlie Sutton wore this number and he was the premiership captain coach in 1954. I said, oh, and I'm thinking to myself, why couldn't I just have number 54 like last week? But anyway, they gave me number 6, which, right at that moment on that day, I really was ignorant of the history of the jumper. I had no idea of any of the history of the Footscray Football Club. That hadn't interested me as a kid. I was only interested in the Saints. But over the years now, I've obviously learned a lot and studied a lot, and that from being at the club for 5 years, and appreciate it now. I really appreciate now that I was given the opportunity to wear that number. I didn't wear it for many games, but there's been other players that haven't worn famous numbers for many games, but they've still been, I suppose, thought of at that time as being worthy of having that jumper. So, that's something I'm pretty proud of.
Absolutely. So here you are, a 17-year-old, you're running out on the field in the number 6, Charlie Sutton's Guernsey, out onto Vic Park. I imagine it wasn't a very welcoming reception.
Not at all. No. Funnily, I don't reckon my feet touched the ground until we got to about 7.5 forward at the far end when we ran out. It was just a cauldron. Collingwood were already out on the ground from memory, and they were warming up down at those Yarra Falls ends. So we only got sort of as far as the just past the centre circle, so to speak. Then we had to turn around and come back and do our warm up. But yeah, it was they were hanging from the rafters that day. There was only round 2. They'd been beaten in the grand final the year before, so they had a good side.
Yeah.
And anyway, the game started and we kicked to the Yarra Falls end in the first quarter, and I was playing on the half forward flank. I think forward pocket, half forward flank, one of those. Anyway, Kevin Worthington had picked me up. Anyway, I'd come up the ground a bit and the ball had gone over, and so I turned around, I ran back and it bounced out, and I've grabbed it and looked up, and this is I always remember my first kick in league football, and I'm probably around about the 50-metre mark, and I picked the ball up and looked up, and coming straight at me, and I reckon he was only about 5 or 6 metres away from me, flat out, was Rene Kink.
Oh.
And he wasn't in a great mood because I had the ball and he didn't. So I just dropped the ball on my right foot. I was a left footer, dropped it on the right foot and went about 20 or 30 metres along the ground. So that was my first kick. And then I got out of his way and he didn't clean me up, which I was very, very grateful for. But and in the second quarter, it was out in the pocket, and I thought, well, I'm no chance here in the goal square because Peter Moore was standing there and Bill Picken was standing there and Craig Stewart or someone, and Kevin Wells said, I'm just going to drop off here 5 metres. So anyway, someone picked the ball up and snapped it, and it went over their heads, and I ended up, I was standing right next to the goal post, and it just landed on my chest, took the mark, and then I was on the left foot, so I was able to kick that goal. And then a few minutes later, that was towards the end of the quarter, I think, and then a few minutes later, the ball got kicked in again and it spilled out, and I picked it up, and I was probably at the top of the goal square, and the guy came running straight at me to smother the ball as I go to kick, and he jumped up in the air, so I kicked it along the ground under his feet, and it went through the goal. He jumped too early, so I was able to sort of pull the kick and kick it along the ground. So yeah, I got a couple of goals there in the second quarter, which was good. Then at half time, in the rooms, Royce said, I want you to play centre half forward in the second half. And I said, oh yeah, okay. Well, you want me to play centre half forward? I'll play centre half forward. And Bill Picken was centre half back, and it was his 150th match that day. So anyway, I played centre half forward against Bill, and in the last quarter, I managed to get away from him and take a mark out on the flank and kick another goal. And then it got right near the end, and I think they beat us by about 14 or 15 goals or something. Bill turned around to me and he said, oh, what do you think of League Footy, mate, young fella? I said, oh, yeah. I said, it's okay. He said, no. He said, good on you. He said, you've done pretty well today. And then the siren went and he shook me hand and he said, catch you later, and off he ran. That was my third game of footy. We played Carlton at Waverley in round 4 of 81. And we'd driven down that morning from Bairnsdale because Waverley's out on the eastern side. And anyway, we got out of the car and we walked into the ground, and I bought the footy record. No one still knew who I was, so they left me alone. I bought a record, opened it up, looked at the teams, and Dad said, oh, where are you playing? I said, oh, I'm on the half forward flank. He said, oh, yeah, who's the centre half forward line? I said, oh, it's me and Shane Lovelace and Jeff Jennings. He said, oh, yeah. He said, who's the Carlton centre half back line? I said, oh, Ken Hunter, Val Perovic and Bruce Dool. And he just looked at me and shook his head, just kept walking. But I played centre half forward that day, and Val Perovic played on me. But they only beat us by about 3 goals that day. And they were, what was that, 81? So, yeah, they were a good side as well. They won the flag that year, of course. They were a very good side. But yeah, Dad just shook his head and thought, bloody hell.
Good luck.
Good luck.
It sounds like you had the opposition were quite respectful from what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, mostly. I'd one experience there. I think might have been that last game in 1982. We played Essendon, I reckon, at the Western Oval, and I started on, I can't remember, it was in the centre half forward or something like that, but Ron Andrews picked me up. And the ball went down we kicked to the Mount Mistake end. Yes. And the ball went straight out of the centre and down our end, and it got kicked out on the full or something in that pocket on the grandstand side. And the Essendon bloke kicked it back, and it was about the 50-metre line, and Ron's standing under it like this, just going to take a chest mark, and I'm running back with the fly of the ball, and I jumped straight up the front of him and marked the ball over him and landed flat straight on him. So anyway, I got up and he stood on the mark, he's coughing and spluttering and carrying on. And I'm on my left foot and I'm right against the fence in front of the John Gent stand. It's only about 30 seconds into the match and I went bang and it just went straight through the middle. So it was the first goal of the game. So I ran back over to centre half forward and he came waddling over like he used to run. And he said, if you go near the effing ball for the rest of the day, mate, he said, you're going to wake up in that effing hospital up there on the hill. And I thought, I was only 18. I thought, yes, Mr. Andrews.
And am I right in saying that you got a message or a call from Royce Hart to come down to the club one day, and you turned up at Western Oval, nobody else was there, and you turned up and walked into the change rooms, and there in front of you is Royce Hart in his kit, ready to go, and says, "Come out onto the track."
That's right. Yeah, he got me the night before at training. Yeah, because I used to have to catch the bus to work, or the bus and the train, then another bus where I lived out in West Sunshine, because I wasn't old enough to drive, of course. He said, "Come down to the club tomorrow night." He said, "And we'll do a bit of work." He said, "Bring your gear." So I lobbed down there after work, and he was in the rooms. He said, "Get changed, we'll get out now." So anyway, one-on-one, I thought, oh yeah, we'll just have a bit of a kick or whatever. So I ran out there and go out in the ground. There's another fellow out on the ground, and he said, "Oh, we're going to do some goal kicking, and then we'll do some marking practice and that." I thought, oh yeah, that's okay. And then I ran out the ground, and it's Peter McKenna. So I'm thinking, I'd only ever seen him on TV as well. So it was probably an hour and a half of Peter McKenna kicking the footies out to Royce and myself doing one-on-one marking. And then Peter McKenna would come out, and I'd be having shots for goal, and he'd be having shots for goal, and he'd be saying, "No, hold the ball like this and do this." And so goal kicking practice with Peter McKenna. So that was probably, I think it was in 81 when I was pretty sure it was in 81 when I was 17, and I'd just moved down to Melbourne, and yeah, that was fairly unbelievable. That there were a couple of sessions again after that, and then. But yeah, that was good. And Royce used to get me one-on-one as well out the back of the club rooms between the two stands there, where the steps went up. On the Whitten stand side, there was a sheer concrete wall where like a retainer wall that the stand steps went up. And he used to get me out there against that concrete wall, and he'd stand back about 6 feet, and I'd stand next to him, and he'd throw the ball as hard as he could at the brick wall, and I had to see which way I was going to bounce and then catch it. And we'd stand there for an hour, and he'd just throw it and throw it, and I just had to catch, and not in the hands. And that was just some of the one-on-one stuff. That look, I was too young really to realise what or understand really what had happened when Royce went in 82. A lot of people didn't like him as a coach. Some guys probably did like him as a coach. But to me, Royce was very, very good.
Alister, were you at the time when you're having this immense focus on you from two of the greats? You must have been thinking that they obviously held you in high regard. Was that how you were feeling? Did that add confidence to you that they were taking so much time to spend with you to develop you?
Oh yeah, for sure. You think back, and I suppose at that time, a lot of the time, the head was still spinning, with things that were actually happening. As I say, I didn't even go to the footy club until after round 6. The only time I went to the club was to play a game.
Wow.
I didn't know anyone. I hadn't trained with anyone, and then all of a sudden, there are guys like that are having an interest in you and trying to teach you how to improve your game or your skills or whatever it was. It was pretty mind-blowing there at the start, especially for a 17-year-old kid who was straight off a farm and really knew nothing.
Tell us about the 83-84 seasons that came, and there was a lot of recruiting done at the Bulldogs.
Yep.
How did you prepare yourself for those seasons physically? Did you do the extra work, and how were you feeling about your game and your prospects?
Oh, look, well, as I say, 81, I played 5 games, and I was just a tall, skinny kid. I was 11 stone ring and wet, and they, Royce said, you got to get down in the gym and train with Kelvin and do the weights and all that. So I tried to do weights and that, and I was lifting the bar and a couple of bloody teacup saucers on the end, I reckon, and Kelvin's lifting these things that you'd anchor a boat with. But then 82, as an 18-year-old, I played another 5. And then, of course, Royce left the club and Bluey was put in as caretaker coach for the rest of 82. And I played 4 early that year, and then I ended up playing the last game of the year. I reckon we played Essendon in the last game of 82, and I think I played that game. So anyway, the start of 83, or pre-season 83, they got me down, I think it was the start of 83, they got me to go to the Hawthorn weightlifting centre. Jim Edmund organised, because his brother Bob was an Australian weightlifter, Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games. And he played footy for Carlton back in his early years, so he was a fair sort of sportsman. Again, Bob, another band-style family. And I would go over to the Hawthorn Weightlifting Centre, which was right at the end of Glenferrie Oval. And you could see the Hawthorn players training, and I'm in the weightlifting centre, and there's Bob who's teaching me how to correctly lift the weights, like a clean and jerk and a snatch and thing. And I reckon it was the strongest I ever was in my entire footy career. But yeah, that 83 season, and Bluey was the coach, and I was 19 years old that year, and I played I think I played 9 games that year. But Bluey used to ride me and make me work hard, and he'd say, I'm doing this because this is we want you to play games and have a future and be part of what's to come, and got to the end of 83, and there were guys that were coming from interstate, and quite a few, and there were guys that were coming from other clubs, and a fair few guys left the footy club as well. Guys that were had been on the fringe and that for quite some time, and these other guys came in. But I managed to hold my spot there for 1984, and Michael Malthouse came on board as coach. I'd set myself, and I thought, if I can play 15 or 16 games, that'll be another stepping stone, and then I'll still have 7, 8, 9, 10 years in front of me. And I played 1 game for the year. They just wouldn't change the side. I think Nick came in, and he's chairman of selectors and that, and got to the end of 84. Went through pre-season again in 85, and I thought, well, this might be an opportunity again. 85, played 1 game in 85 in the seniors. So I'd gone from 5, 5 and 9, and the coaches really pushing me and telling me what they wanted me to do and what their plans and that were, to playing 2 years and 1 game in each year, and probably never really having a conversation with the coach.
Alister, wasn't a case of maybe getting too heavy? How did you find the weightlifting and the change of the physique? Did that assist your game?
Yeah, it did. That year when I was stronger, that was the best year that I had at Footscray, when I played those 9 games. There were games, there was 1 game there I kicked 4 goals. There's a couple others where I kicked a couple, or 2 goals 2, or 2 goals 3, or something like that. Could have been 4 or 5 goals, but just to the 84 and 85, from a personal point of view, I was really, really disappointed in, I suppose, opportunities and communication from the coaching staff and that sort of thing. And then it got to the end of 85, and and it was early January in '86 actually, and I got a phone call from one of the fellas at St Kilda, and he said, "I want to come and have a talk to you." So he did, and we had a chat, and then I went down to the club, and they'd already spoken with the Footscray CEO and the coaches and that, of course. And I went down. They said, "Oh, yeah, St Kilda wants you to go and play there, and we want Max Crow to come and play here." And I had a conversation with Shane O'Sullivan and Wayne Walsh, who was the chairman of selectors, and Mick Malthouse upstairs in the rooms there at Footscray. And Shane said, "If you want to stay here at Footscray Football Club in 1986, you'll have a contract, you'll be a required player." And Walshy said, "Look, that might be the case. If you go to St Kilda, you're probably more chance to play senior footy and the like. But if you stay here at the Bulldogs, yes, you will have a contract. You're a required player, but you'll only be an insurance policy if Andrew Purser or Simon Beasley get rubbed out or injured. That's the only way you'll be playing." So it was really a no-brainer for me to then say, "Okay, well, thanks for 5 years. It's been terrific, but I need to move on."
It almost sounds like the Australian cricket team. It's harder to get in than out, and I guess you're talking about two pillars of our club there with Beasley and Purser, but it strikes me that there wasn't another opportunity for you to play in a forward pocket or some other positions. I know Jim Sewell came across from Western Australia. There was some shuffling at that point.
I think Mick was pretty set in his ways and who he wanted in the side.
Yeah.
There would never, you go back through those years, there were never really any changes made to the team other than changes that had to be enforced, like suspension or bad injuries and things like that. That's footy. I've got no ill feeling or anything like that. That's just the way footy clubs operate and how it is at that time. And I'm still just grateful. I got a wonderful opportunity to do something in my life that thousands and thousands never did.
So looking back, what are your takeaways? You obviously speak about your pride in the club. You're a really active past player in all the events. So I guess some of those relationships you've built, can you talk us through a little bit about that, and also who, some of your, great best mates and teammates were from that period?
Oh, look, they're all great mates. I'm blessed to have been part of it and be able to call all those people that I played footy with and were involved with, the people that were off the field that supported us. I'm really blessed to be able to call all of them friends, and any time I see any of them, have a chat or a beer or a coffee or whatever it is. But they're all terrific people as far as I'm concerned. Both football clubs. There's no, as I say, I have no ill feeling or anything like that. I love both the footy clubs. People ask me who I barrack for. I say, "Oh, Footscray and St Kilda." You can't have two teams. I said, "Well, yes, I can, and I have."
So, Alister, you leave the AFL, you exit the AFL as almost a veteran, 22-year-old veteran, with some amazing experiences behind you, played on amazing players, and you venture into the country. So you head off to Ballarat League. Where was
Ballarat?
Yeah. Okay.
Ballarat Footy Club. Yeah.
You achieve you have a remarkable feat there where you win the BNF in an incredibly hard, tough league at one of the more prominent football clubs in Victoria. Just briefly talk us about coming back with all that experience. Still very, very young. Tell us about that experience for you that year or those years.
Oh, look, yeah, the East Ballarat Footy Club, who I played with in the Ballarat League, and then later on the St Albans Footy Club in the Geelong Footy League, were just fantastic football clubs, fantastic people, down-to-earth people, honest, and it was just a great experience. But 88, I suppose there was a lot of expectation from the media in Ballarat, football public in Ballarat, as to how I would play and how East Ballarat would, I suppose, respond with a player who'd been playing league footy in the ruck coming into the league. There were a lot of ex-league players who were playing in the Ballarat Footy League, and very, very good football. It was not a case of just walk out on the ground and start to get the ball and have a kick and be the best player there was out there. No, not the case at all. And I knew that was going to be the case because, I had a couple of guys that were very good mentors for me away from the football clubs who had played footy in the Footscray District League and that pretty tough footy. And they said, no, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. You need to work hard. And I did that. I made sure I did that. So, yeah, I was fortunate enough to win the medal in my first year, but we missed the finals on the last match of the year. But then following 2 years, 88 and 89, we won back-to-back premierships. So, I think that, I was able to play a fairly major role in us winning those flags. And then in 93, we recruited a few kids and got a good team together, and we managed to pull off the upset of the century and win the flag in the grand final when we beat North Ballarat.
Oh.
They were going for their 50th win in a row and third premiership in a row, second undefeated premiership in a row. We were the only team for the whole year that got within 50 points of them. We beat them by 5 goals. We were 8 goals up at half time. And as I say, I had no regrets about walking away from league footy after those 7 years and going and playing in the Ballarat Footy League and then in the Geelong Footy League.
Well, you come across as a person with extraordinary integrity, and when your beliefs are there, you follow through with them, and that started well from the Royce Hart first introduction. So it's an incredible journey. You started with a bang, ended with a bang at the 1985 end of season trip, which shan't be spoken about. And then, obviously an incredible career, winning best and fairest in double, 2 leagues. It's, off the charts. So, what a storied career, and, certainly a very unique journey to league footy as well.
Look, I think the main thing for me is, look, I as I said before, I wasn't a superstar or anything like that. I battled along and got a game when I could and helped out the footy club and the teams in the best way that I could, was ever asked. But at the end of the day, it's something that I'm very, very proud to look back on, that I was able to be a part of those 2 footy clubs in the VFL and have that opportunity. And as I said, there are a hell of a lot of people who never had the opportunity, and I'm just grateful that it came my way.
Before we leave, we have a Bulldog quiz, and I know I'm putting this on you.
That's okay.
We've got a 60-second timer here, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to see if you can climb up the leaderboard. Dougie Hawkins is currently sitting at the top, and he keeps on letting us know. He sends me a text. He's still on the top, Matty.
I don't want to hurt Dougie's feelings. So what's he on?
He's on 16 points.
Okay,
now,
I'll try and get 15.
Magnificent. Good luck. I'm going to give you a chance to choose which category. So you can choose Bulldog Brothers or first games in red, white, and blue. Which one takes your fancy?
Bulldog Brothers.
Bulldog Brothers. All right. Awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so you got 60 seconds on the clock. It'll start after I finish the first question. Good luck. Alister, your time starts now. Scott, Mark, and Robbie West were triplets. Is that true or false?
False.
Correct. Brothers Alan and Jack Collins were both winners of the club's leading goal kicking award. Is that true or false?
False.
It's true. Gary was the younger brother of Terry Wheeler. True or false?
True.
Well done. What was the name of Chris Grant's older brother who played 5 games for us?
Jamie.
Yes. Which Guernsey number did Steve McPherson's brother Rod wear?
43.
Yeah, wow. Simon Atkins' twin brother played 2 games for which other league club?
Did he go to Fitzroy as well?
It wasn't Fitzroy, it was the Swans.
Okay.
Which brothers hold the club record for a combined most games as brothers?
Oh, the Grants.
It was Ted and Don Whitten.
Oh, okay.
Which Footscray had 4 Cordy brothers listed in the 80s. Neil, Brian, Graham, and who?
Roger.
Well done. And final question, just as the time finishes, the Bulldogs hold the league record for the most sets of brothers on a list at the same time in 1977. How many sets of brothers were there? This will put you right at the top if you get a chance here, Alister. So good luck. How many sets of brothers were there? Record.
There was the Wheelers. There was, look, I'd say 3.
It was 4.
Oh,
It was 4. That was awesome. The Wheelers were absolutely. There was also the
O'Connors.
Reeds, the Henwoods, and the O'Connors. The O'Connors as
I
well.
knew the O'Connors. I didn't think of the, all good.
You did absolutely magnificently there. Loved it. So I'll calculate those scores. They're coming up on your screen now. Fantastic job there, Alister. Well done.
Good on you guys. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Well, from
Pleasure.
the bottom of our hearts, thank you, for telling your story today, and thank you to that couple from Lakes Entrance who stopped and picked you up and took you to Footscray for the first time.
Yes,
And
very, very good.
brilliant. And thank you so much for joining us here on Inside the Kennel.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you,
and-
Alister. Great work. Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much. Glad I
Absolutely. Go Dogs.
could be here. Cheers.
Red in my heart, white in my veins, blue in one eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm